So this idea of present commonality is a great way to open conversations, one-to-one conversations. And so what that looks like on LinkedIn is taking the action that this person has taken, the way that they've raised their hand. So let's say they've viewed your profile. That's the thing you've got in common. So you might say, and this would be like a connection request you would send with a note. You can add a note and you would say, "Hi, Joan, thanks for checking out my profile," present commonality, and then hand the microphone over. Did anything stand out? And you've now just handed them the microphone in a nice, comfortable way and hopefully moving into a one-to-one conversation with an interesting person.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that inspires action and helps you to grow your side hustle into a thriving income stream. I'm your host, Joan Posivy. So tell me if this sounds familiar. You're on LinkedIn looking to grow your side hustle, and someone actually shows some interest. Maybe they liked your post or checked out your profile or even left a comment. You want to respond somehow, but you hesitate. You're not quite sure what to say or how to turn that into an actual conversation. You're definitely not alone. Today, LinkedIn expert Joan Mackay shares how to break through that hesitation and start simple yet effective one-on-one conversations that can actually grow your business. Jo went from getting paid $50 for writing LinkedIn posts while working a day job to building a six-figure business through the platform. And here he's sharing his strategies. We're talking profile tweaks, conversation starters, and the kind of posts that get people reaching out. So for tips on using LinkedIn more effectively, here's my conversation with Jo Mackay. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you so much for having me, Joan. It's really good to be here. I look forward to a chat.
As our resident LinkedIn expert today, what's the biggest mistake you see people trying to grow their influence or following on the platform? Like, what are they doing wrong? What are they missing? What do you see?
So I think the biggest mistake that most people make on LinkedIn when it comes to growing a business is being afraid to take that first step and reach out. I think 95% of LinkedIn is people lurking. And people are very actively engaged on LinkedIn. They're watching from the sidelines. But I think if you're trying to grow a business on LinkedIn, it's super important to get comfortable with doing some outreach, taking that first step to contact someone that you might be able to do business with or collaborate with in some way. I think a lot of people just wait for someone else to talk first, and that's just, for whatever reason, LinkedIn just doesn't seem to really work that way. And so if you can break that kind of discomfort and reach out, you're going to see great results.
And you're not just talking about posting something, you're talking about reaching out to individuals on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I think more and more side hustlers and entrepreneurs are starting to realize the value of creating content on LinkedIn and distributing content. And I think that's a really great place to start. What I mean by outreach is then the next step beyond that. So once you're publishing content and you're getting engagement, you're getting people commenting and liking your content, viewing your profile, it's really important then to try and, wherever you can and in a comfortable, non-confrontational way, but to try and start conversations, one-to-one conversations in LinkedIn.
And what would you recommend that first step to be? Is getting that person to connect with you on LinkedIn, or what is your first step in that outreach?
Yeah, so I try and think of hand raisers on LinkedIn. So people that have expressed some level of interest or intent around what you're doing. So they might have viewed your profile, they might have liked one of your posts, they might have commented there, or they might send you a connection request. And I think any of those groups of people, it's really important to try and reach out to in some way. And the most effective strategy I see for doing that uses this idea of present commonality. And present commonality is an interesting subject. And I guess the best way to illustrate this, and I'd like actually to ask you a question around this. So I'll give you a scenario.
Okay.
Imagine if you're going to a wedding, you're going to this wedding by yourself, it's a friend's wedding, and you arrive a few minutes early and you're scanning the venue and you're trying to find somewhere to sit, and you sort of realize that you don't know anyone else that's going to this wedding. You're going to have to sit next to someone new. So you go and you sit next to someone new and you're trying to kill some time and start a conversation. What kind of question might you ask that new person that you sit next to?
What's your connection to the bride or groom, or what brought you here today? That kind of thing. That I suppose commonality.
That is the thing that you've got in common at that moment, is the bride and groom that you presumably must both know in some way. So that's a really comfortable opener. That's the reason we spend so much time talking about the weather, because the sky above us is what we all have in common at a given moment. We want to be a little bit more interesting than the weather.
Yes.
So this idea of present commonality is a great way to open conversations, one-to-one conversations. And so what that looks like on LinkedIn is taking the action that this person has taken, the way that they've raised their hand. So let's say they've viewed your profile. That's the thing you've got in common. So you might say, and this would be like a connection request you would send with a note. You can add a note and you would say, "Hi, Joan, thanks for checking out my profile," present commonality.
Yes.
And then hand the microphone over. Did anything stand out? And you just simply hand over the microphone. Now, a lot of times there won't be anything particular that stood out. Sometimes there will be something that they're looking for or that did stand out. And you've now just handed them the microphone in a nice, comfortable way and hopefully moving into a one-to-one conversation with an interesting person. So
yes,
I think that's the key strategy that I see around from content. Fantastic, distribute content, but then trying to move into one-to-one conversations with present commonality.
I absolutely love that, because periodically, and sometimes way too often, not periodically, I get bombarded with these. It's clearly a automated email sequence that I completely block it out. But what you're saying is very customized. You're speaking one-to-one with that person.
Yeah, look, and I think, and particularly for side hustlers, by definition, you're going to have other stuff going on in your life. You've probably got a day job. So you do have limited time. However, when it comes to building relationships with people, for me, that is just the one thing that we should spend time on.
Yeah.
Taking the time to just, and so this can still be something that you can copy and paste the body of this message.
Yes.
You still one-to-one, you have to connect, but you can standardize your outreach. But automating these things and sort of depersonalizing the whole thing completely, I just think is a really bad use of time long term.
With the LinkedIn packages, the free account, you're limited to the number of personalized messages, I believe.
Yeah, so there are some limits. I think you can connect with 50 people a week that you don't know on the basic package.
Oh, okay. All right.
And 100 a week if you upgrade to premium.
Okay.
Just on that, actually mentioning the packages, I do think LinkedIn Premium is worth the investment. The main reason I say that is you can then see everyone that's viewed your profile.
Okay.
And people viewing your profile is a really strong, high intent signal. And that's something we want to be able to pick up on and then have a simple way to get into a one-to-one conversation. So it's not the cheapest subscription out there, but I think if you're trying to grow your side hustle on LinkedIn, I would strongly consider Premium for that reason.
What's the cost of Premium these days?
I think it's around $75, $80 a month.
Okay. US. Okay. All right. How long have you been focused on the platform?
So I started really actively using LinkedIn in mid-2022. I think like a lot of people, so this is interesting. LinkedIn is the oldest kind of social media that's still in existence. It started, I think, in 2000.
Really?
A lot of others have come and gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of others have come and gone, MySpace and things like that. And obviously Facebook and things like that is still around, but all started later. So most of us have had a really long experience with the platform, putting our CV online at some stage.
Yes.
So I've been on LinkedIn for probably close to 20 years, but really focused on it mid-2022, started to share content actively then, and it's really taken off since then.
I really appreciate the platform because of its focus on business and career. It's so different than your Facebook, Instagram arenas.
And I think because it is tied to, you can't have an anonymous, like you can't have a handle. You have to have your actual name. It's connected to your career. The stakes are higher. And so it's quite hard to anonymously interact on LinkedIn. So I think that just raises the quality of interaction that we're having on average.
Well, what are your revenue sources that you're deriving from LinkedIn?
So my key offer at the moment, and where my side hustle really started around LinkedIn, is LinkedIn ghostwriting. So interviewing founders, CEOs, executives, other solopreneurs, and turning those interviews into content for them to publish on LinkedIn. That started out as literally writing 10 posts for an old boss of mine who owns a management consultancy.
Okay.
Started that in 2022 and really built the skill from there. To this day, that's still my core revenue stream. I'm now close to 3 years into this process, and so I'm leaning more into coaching. So group coaching, one-to-one coaching, helping other solopreneurs to grow their business or their side hustle on LinkedIn, just like I have.
So it started with his 10 posts that you wrote for him? What did you charge him?
So that started, so I offered to do it for free because I wanted to test this idea, and he said, I'm not going to let you do this for free.
Yeah.
What is your rate? And I think I plucked a number, and it was $500 for 10 posts.
Oh my gosh. We can't get that deal anymore, huh?
That deal is no longer available. Yeah, I had to scale up pretty quickly from there. And we can get into this around the side hustle piece, but I did have a day job at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually found that a real position of strength because I didn't need the money as such for this. And so what I very quickly realized was I need to set a price point that is reflective of my free time, my evenings with my family, my weekends. So if I'm going to offer this service, which I really wanted to, and I believed in the service,
Yes.
I couldn't afford to be doing it at a really cheap rate just to grow. And I didn't need to because I was fortunate enough to have a salary on the side. So this being a side hustle and starting that way, starting slow, actually was a real strong point because I had my price point.
Yes.
That was what my free time was worth. And it was really then about finding the audience that had the budget and the willingness to invest at that price point.
And did you find yourself structuring your time where you allocated certain evenings or points on the weekend where you'd be doing this? How did you manage that?
I was never too structured with it. I mean, you end up with a series of rolling deadlines. Content has to go out regularly. So every 2 weeks I was shipping a batch of content, and then it was really on me to manage my time, sleep schedules, weekend activities, birthday parties, all that kind of thing. It was very much just tactically finding windows of time in the schedule to move the ball forward as much as I could.
Those first 10 posts, did you say it was for your boss?
It was a former boss. So
former boss. Okay. All right.
In management consulting.
Okay.
He continued to go out on his own and built his own practice. And I wrote for him.
Okay. I was going to say, because that would have been, if it was your boss and then you turn around and quit. Gee, thanks for the opportunity. No.
Yeah. And look, I think this is another interesting area to talk about for side hustlers because I guess, again, was fortunate and had the foresight to, in taking a new job, like I notified my boss that I had this side hustle and that my LinkedIn channel was my property, my IP, and I was happy to support company content and things like that and update my profile to show where I was working. But that part of me accepting the role would be that I will be using my LinkedIn channel to promote the side hustle that I've got. And that's, again, that was a big leg up. That's not a situation that every side hustler is in. There are a lot of bosses that aren't tolerant of that kind of thing. So there was never any kind of hiding.
That's a really interesting point because if you've just got the one LinkedIn profile, chances are you're going to be engaging with other people and your profile is going to be engaging with that company. And if you've started this side hustle, particularly if it's something very different than your full-time work, you're going to have these almost like two threads in your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, it can be a tricky situation to navigate. I think the key focus is if you feel comfortable, have the conversation with your employer, try and bring it to the table and so that you can at least have part of your public presence that's related to your side hustle.
Yeah. And
from there, I think you're probably going to be more reliant on one-to-one outreach. So it might be cold outreach, searching for particular people that are on LinkedIn, connecting with them, and then trying to engage with them one-to-one through direct message.
Yes.
Your approach, your strategy using LinkedIn is going to change a little bit if you're below the line or I guess below the radar with your side hustle.
Okay. So you mentioned that you started out with those 10 posts for $500. It was a side hustle. What have you grown it up to now in terms of revenue?
So my yearly revenue last year, so for the 2024 year, was just a tick under 160,000 Australian dollars.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I actually shared about this with my email audience. That number, I've had a lot of attitudes towards that number. And sometimes it's felt massive. Sometimes it's felt tiny. Sometimes it's felt like it's part of my identity. And I've just realized over time that it's just a number and I'm adding value and I have a beautiful family and a life that I love. And the revenue's, I guess, part of the reason we're in business. But I've really tried to talk more about revenue and what I'm earning and share publicly with my audience about that, because for me, I found like keeping it to myself made it seem bigger than it actually is, like a taboo, and it was just getting, yeah. And particularly, I think this is one of the aspects of LinkedIn. There is a lot of humble bragging, a lot of boasting on the platform. It can feel like everyone out there is making $1 million. And so I wanted to take control back, I guess, of that and reframe it, put it back in perspective that it's fantastic and it's enabling us to live the life we want to. But at the end of the day, it's just a number and it doesn't define me.
Of that 160, how much of that is derived via LinkedIn?
100%.
100%. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't focus on any other platforms. You're just focused on LinkedIn.
So more recently, I think in August 2024, I turned on an email newsletter. So I've started to build an email audience.
Okay.
Which in 2025, I have started to sell my services through that. But yeah, throughout 2024, every client that I found was a referral or a lead that came to me through LinkedIn.
Yes.
There's obviously other steps in the process. There are one-to-one conversations, there are pitches, and there's business development that goes around that.
Yes.
But yeah, LinkedIn was the only channel that I used to market my business in 2024.
Great. And of course, with the development of the newsletter, that is something that is always going to be yours. Whereas LinkedIn, you have zero control over. It could change hands. It could change the algorithms. All sorts of things could happen. But at least that email list that you're developing, that's yours. Awesome.
Absolutely. And the rented land argument is one that does bounce around a lot amongst side hustlers, amongst solopreneurs and people who market their business on social media. And I understand that as well. It is rented land, that any audience you've got on a social media platform.
Yes.
However, if you go to your nearest shopping center, all those spaces are rented spaces, and people rent spaces in those environments because they're high foot traffic and there's value to showing up there. So that's a trade-off I've been willing to make. I definitely want to secure an owned audience.
Yes.
Which I'm working on, but I think it's par for the course that at some point to get in front of a decent volume of people, you're going to have to rent an audience from somewhere. And
for sure. And then invite them all over to your head office.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Let's dive into the LinkedIn best practices. How about we start with how we set up the profile? Would that be a good start?
So, profile is definitely your shop window. It is that 24/7 asset that you've got. And if it's set up effectively, it can be helping you market and sell your services even when you're not on LinkedIn. Okay. So getting that right is important. The first thing I would say is a nice, clear, strong, professional photo. We want to visibly see who you are. Then it's headline. So if you're a little in doubt on what to say in your headline, I think just starting with who do you help, who's your target audience, and how do you help them, I think is the simplest possible way I think about your headline.
As opposed to, this is who I am.
Yeah, I think particularly if you're looking to use LinkedIn as a business platform and a business development tool, you want to make as much of it focused on the customer as you can. There's a time and a place for people to figure out about you, but really you want to try and point towards the customer as much as you can. And that's a key shift that I've seen, touched on that long relationship that a lot of us have had with LinkedIn. And it started out as our CV online. So when I'm looking at profiles, a lot of profiles I see have that heritage.
Yes.
It's essentially my career profile, my history. That's flipped. And so now your kind of about section, which is probably the next key part of your profile, your about section now I think really needs to be about your customer, not about you. So trying to talk to, again, who is it that you help? What are they struggling with and how do you help them? Less around Joe has 10 years experience in marketing campaigns and LinkedIn content creation. That's the kind of mindset I think that is a bit of a bygone era of LinkedIn, and it's much more now about whose attention you're trying to attract and focusing on them.
So you mentioned that the photo, headline, about section. Is there another key area that people are making mistakes or need to clean up?
Yeah, so there's an area called the featured section in your profile. This is an optional part of your profile. I strongly suggest you turn this on. I think what you need to feature there is two things. The first would be what I think of as a high value conversion. So that might be book a call with me, visit my website, something that, or buy my service or product, depending on what your side hustle is.
Okay.
A high value conversion that you might want someone to take. So they've seen your headline, they've looked at your profile and they want to take action at that point, give them that opportunity. You then, next to that, want to have a lower value, lighter lift call to action. So that might be subscribe to my newsletter. It might be something else that is, lower value, but easier for them to do, quicker and easier.
Can you put in a live link there to say subscribe to my newsletter?
Yeah, and so that's the value in the featured section, because LinkedIn and Microsoft, the owners of LinkedIn, want to keep people on platform. That is their number one goal. And when you're in the feed, when you're publishing content, any external links are heavily punished by the algorithm, because Microsoft wants you scrolling LinkedIn.
Wait a minute. You said punished, so they will show up?
So LinkedIn will not censor your content or block your content just because it has external links, but the algorithm will heavily throttle the reach that post gets.
Okay. And you've seen this statistically in...
Yeah, this is a known aspect of LinkedIn and the algorithm. So a lot of podcast hosts will be publishing links to their episodes on YouTube or on Spotify.
Yes.
And you might have noticed this as well, or signing up for your newsletter. Those posts with a link in them tend to just, for whatever reason, not reach anywhere near as many people as normal.
That's really interesting. I can go back now and take a look at my posts and do a little comparison.
Yeah, so there is throttling that happens. Yeah. People have then tried to, rather than posting links within the post, they would comment on their own post and share the link in there. LinkedIn is also cottoning onto that, and they're throttling links. So the featured section is a great place where none of that applies. So if it was for a podcast host, for example, you might pin or feature your latest episode or a link to your kind of YouTube playlist. And that might be a place in content you're creating. You can then refer your audience to go and check out the featured section of my profile to see all my episodes.
Link. Because the content that you put in the featured section, it's not going to show up in anybody's feed, correct?
It's not in the feed. It's just visible when someone views your profile.
So the key is to put, say, for us podcasters, is to mention it in the features, and then in the actual post, refer to the featured section.
Exactly. So click on my profile and go to my featured section to watch the full episode. Something like that might be your call to action at the bottom of your post.
Got it. Interesting. Any other pointers on our profile page to help us stand out from the crowd?
Those are the key aspects. I think if you flip your about section to be about your customer rather than about from your university days through to present day, you're already ahead of 95% of people on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
That's the key focus. I think as well, just writing in the first person, writing in present tense, active tense. I see a lot of, Joan is a very experienced senior executive, talking in the third person, heavy language. Make it easy on the brain if you can.
What's your feeling about people using emojis in their LinkedIn posts?
I personally don't have a problem with it. I've been known to use an emoji here and there.
Okay.
What is interesting around this is the current rise of AI-generated content.
Yes.
And there are certain ways that emoji is used by AI-generated content that are real red flags.
Yes.
So using emojis in that way, I would not suggest.
Because so many of us now are turning to AI for different aspects of our business. I found that I've started to develop an eye of, this is clearly a AI post that I'm reading as I'm scrolling through LinkedIn.
Absolutely. There are some telltale signs. An emoji, a certain type of emoji use is definitely a telltale sign.
Yeah.
If that's the way that you communicate, I think it depends as well on your audience and who you're trying to reach and what stage maybe they're at as well.
Yeah, good.
My whole position on this is to try and be as real and authentic as you can. And if that means emojis, go for it. If it means different, then do that.
Stay true to yourself and your audience. What types of content have you found the most effective to post on LinkedIn to engage audiences?
So there are a few different ways to look at this. I really bring LinkedIn content down. I try and put LinkedIn content into one of three buckets.
Okay.
I think any post that you share on LinkedIn should be trying to do one of three things. It should either be trying to raise awareness, so that is reach as many people as possible, broad-based appeal.
Okay.
That's your first kind of post. Your second kind of post should really be more about building trust with a specific audience, the audience that you're trying to talk to or trying to sell to. That's positioning you as an expert. That is educating that audience. So you're having less broad appeal, more focused appeal, talking about a subject matter that's relevant to your audience. And then the third type of post I think we all need is an offer-based post. So a post that makes an offer to the person, that ideal customer that you're trying to talk to. This is a key gap that I see in content. It goes back to what we started talking about at the very beginning, people assuming that you publish content and then people know where to find me, people know what I do, they know how I can help them, and they're just going to send me a message when they're ready to buy.
I see.
So I think every now and then, call it once a month, depending on how much you post.
Yes.
Publish a post that really explicitly says, here's who I serve, here's how I serve them, and here are the 3 ways that you can work with me. And a simple call to action that says, send me a direct message with a keyword or a very specific action someone can take if they're interested. And just commit to making that offer on a regular basis.
Yes.
So those are the 3 posts that I think we all need.
Okay.
And those have different objectives. So we measure the success of those in different ways.
Because you mentioned including the offer post about once a month. How often would you recommend somebody post generally?
If you're really looking to use LinkedIn to grow your business, grow your side hustle, I think the kind of 80-20 rule, the sweet spot for content is 3 posts a week. You can do more and you'll get incrementally more reach. You can do less and you'll do okay. But I think three posts a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, is a really good cadence.
Okay.
I would probably preface that and say the best cadence is the one you can sustain. So
yes.
if you've never posted on LinkedIn, I would suggest try and get 1 post done per week if you can.
Right.
And build from there. But if we're talking, best practice on the long term, I think 3 posts a week is great. So what that week might look like is Monday is an awareness post. So that is designed to have kind of broader appeal. That might be a story about me and my business, how I got to where I am. Wednesday might be a trust-based post. That might be more around my expertise, talking to my ideal audience. So that might be a mental model that I use with clients or a framework that I use or a quick walkthrough of how I achieved a result for a client.
Yes.
And then Friday might be your offer post. And so that might be a testimonial from a customer. That might be a success story, a result that I've achieved. And again, with a call to action that says, here's how you can work with me. That might be your week on a page.
But because we're only going to be doing that offer, say, once a month, then in subsequent weeks, you just be dividing it up between those kind of awareness posts and the trust posts.
So I think that middle layer of the cake, the trust part of your content is the most important. I would spend roughly 50% of your time there, 50 to 60% of your time. So you're sharing content that's relevant to your ideal audience. Every now and then you want to go a little bit lighter than that. You want to go broader, sharing a story that's got more general appeal. Okay. Just so that you're reaching new people.
Yes. The building the trust piece then is really delivering content. Here's tools and tips to help you succeed. And it is that credibility piece because then it's showing off your expertise in that particular area for your side hustle. Correct?
Yeah. Offering solutions that to the problems that your target audience is facing, helping them tackle something that they're going through. That kind of thing is what's going to position you as an expert and build trust.
Do you have favorite LinkedIn features that help generate leads, convert them to clients?
In terms of lead generation, the key feature I would say is the direct message inbox. For most of us who are selling a service, to make a sale, it's highly likely you're going to need to have a one-to-one conversation at some point. Okay. So the direct message inbox is the best place to start that one-to-one conversation. You might then pivot it to a Zoom call or an in-person meeting. Right. But going from broadcast content into one-to-one conversations for me is, if you're looking at lead generation, that's where the magic happens. That's when you're starting to understand more about what your audience is going through and what individuals are needing. So I would say definitely the direct message inbox.
And that's how you use LinkedIn to build and maintain meaningful relationships, starting with the thing you mentioned in the very beginning, which was that present commonality. Is that right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I think, again, the other beauty of having one-to-one conversations is the algorithm recognizes who you're talking to one-to-one, and so it's going to show your content to that audience as well. So
Okay.
our goal with anything on social media, I believe, is to, whatever platform you're on, is to ultimately deepen that relationship and at some point have one-to-one chats.
Yes. You mentioned to me in an email that you use an algorithm-proof action plan with your content that you could do in 20 minutes a week to bring in money consistently. What did
Yep.
you mean by that? And what is that?
So we've talked about some of the wacky ways of the algorithm, and some
Okay.
content performs better, some content doesn't perform as well. And so the way to diversify yourself against just relying on content to do the job
Yes.
is really about those hand raises that we've covered off, making sure that whatever traction your content is getting,
Okay.
you're handing that microphone, using your present commonality, hand the microphone to the person that's raised their hand. The other aspect to kind of going algorithm proof is showing up on other people's content, commenting thoughtfully. So if you can scroll the feed and find people that maybe provide a service that's related to what you provide, or you can find people that might fit your target audience and you can show up in thoughtful ways and comment on their content. It's also a great way to start to build relationships with new audiences, show up in different people's feeds, and diversify again that reliance on just your content, your posts.
Trying to show up in people's feeds, basically where your clients are at or your potential clients are at.
Exactly.
And to make that engagement genuine.
Yeah, so a lot of people get stuck on the idea of commenting and think that they need to be funny or share a super insightful comment or build on an idea. I think if you're starting out with trying to comment more thoughtfully, just go with a really specific, genuine compliment on the original post. I think things like, thanks for sharing, great post, that kind of stuff, that doesn't really move the needle. That doesn't build your brand at all.
Right.
But if you could just share a specific compliment about what you actually liked about the post, that's going to make the poster's day.
Yes.
And it's going to encourage response.
And it shows that you actually really did read the post.
Exactly right. So I think
Right.
that's the key. Again, this isn't a super scalable strategy, but when it comes to building relationships, I just think it's worth that investment of time. So this might be 5 comments a day that you try and leave every time, or whenever you log into LinkedIn, you might try and leave 5 thoughtful comments. Of course, you can build from there and start to share some of your own ideas on comments once you get a bit more confident. But a starting point is just a nice specific compliment.
Nice. As someone who's interacting on LinkedIn, likely more than a lot of people, what are some emerging trends on LinkedIn that solopreneurs should be aware of to stay ahead?
There's a couple of trends that really come to mind on LinkedIn. The first trend I'm seeing now is video content. So there's a TikTok style vertical video feed on the LinkedIn app now.
Okay.
So that's video content on average is performing much better in terms of reach in 2025.
Okay.
So video content is absolutely one to watch. More and more people, obviously, majority of people use LinkedIn on their phone. That video tab is there. So video content has arrived in a big way. The second trend I'm seeing is what I call normcore content. It's this kind of Crocs and socks type content. LinkedIn went through a phase over the last 2 or 3 years where a lot of people realized the value there in
Yes.
reaching an audience. And there was a lot of focus on how to curate the formatting of your posts and write in very short sentences and use lots of bullets and white space and really optimizing the aesthetics, I would say, of LinkedIn content,
Okay.
often at the expense of substance.
Oh, okay.
I'm seeing that coming back around now. And so it's a lot less curated in what it looks like and how it's formatted. And it's just much more focused on actually adding value, solving a problem, sharing some genuine insight.
Right.
I think it's this correction against it felt like, and maybe this is just because I was in that space and watching really closely, but it just felt like in 2023, everyone became a LinkedIn content creator. And there was people everywhere selling courses and how to generate leads on LinkedIn and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
And that led to a certain type of content that
Yes.
proliferated. And now I'm seeing a kind of correction against that in 2025.
Interesting. And back to your first point about having the focus on the video now, I discovered last week when I tried to do it that I couldn't in a single post include video and photographs, like
That's
JPEGs.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So you either have an image post, a photo post, or a video post. So depending on your editing kind of skills and your desire to get involved in that, you could edit in some still images into your video, but you can only upload one file on a video post.
Oh, create almost like a little reel. Got it.
Yep.
Right. I didn't have the time or the desire to do that for this particular
Exactly.
post, but
That's another level.
That's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yep.
You being the LinkedIn expert, what is something I should have asked you about that I haven't yet?
I think the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is how to figure out what to create content about or what to write about on LinkedIn. And my key advice around that and figuring out what to create content on is I believe the best content isn't created, it's just found in the existing interactions you're already having with customers. So I'm rather than trying to stare at a blank page and create content from scratch, I'm always looking around my business for content that I can just harvest. So if I have a discovery call, a conversation with a prospect or a potential client, and they ask me a bunch of questions, those questions, each of those, and my response could become a post. If I deliver something for a client and they really like it, or there's a question they ask me about that, or there's something that clients always ask me for, that can become content as well. So rather than trying to, stare at a blank page and create something from scratch, just look around you at the interactions you're having with customers. Give them a tour of the workshop if you can. What I mean by that is share a snippet of what it's like to work with you. That can be a great piece of content that you don't have to create from scratch.
What would an example of that be?
So for me, I have when I onboard a new ghostwriting client, I have a Notion hub that I give them access to and gives them an overview of where all their content lives, their content calendar, their strategy. I might take a screenshot of, not revealing any sensitive client information, but just take a screenshot of what that looks like and say, here's what you can expect here's the onboarding process for my clients. Here's what it looks like.
I see what you mean.
Kind of a sneak peek. So I don't have to create anything new. It's all these assets and collateral I've already got in my business. I just take a photo of it or take a quick video of it and share. And it's really interesting as well to your target audience, the person that might want to buy from you.
Right. You mentioned examples of potential sources of content would be those conversations with a prospective client. But what if somebody is really just starting out and they don't even have a client yet? Any tips for them on how they can dig up content instead of, like you said, just staring at that blank page?
So I think for someone starting out, there are a few different avenues that you could look at. What I find with a lot of side hustlers is they're often customer zero for what they're producing. So you've identified a pain point or a problem and you want to help other people solve that problem.
Yes.
So think of yourself and your own experience with this problem. Write to yourself 2 years ago, or where you were when you had this idea to solve the problem that you're now solving with your side hustle. If you don't have a client external to you, think about yourself and how it made you feel facing this challenge, what you wished existed before you offer what you offer now. So I think that for many of us, our businesses start from a place of our own kind of need or a problem that we identify. So that can be a super rich source of inspiration when you're starting out.
Sure. For those people who aren't already sold on LinkedIn, or maybe it's not a best fit for them anyway, maybe take 30 seconds and pitch me on why we should use LinkedIn. And then maybe we'll talk about some situations where maybe it's not the best.
So I think LinkedIn is a really valuable tool for you if you offer a digital service. So if you can serve customers all over the world, I think that's a starting point.
Okay.
If you have a high ticket offer, we know that the LinkedIn audience of over 1 billion people is a high income audience. I forget the exact statistics on this, but it is a well-educated high income audience. So if you're selling high ticket services, I think LinkedIn is a great place to stand out. The other key aspect that I see for LinkedIn as a channel, that differentiates it from other channels is the ability to search by a job title. So if the service that you offer is targeted to a specific industry or a specific job title,
Right.
LinkedIn is going to be a great place for you to go in and get to that target audience.
That sounds great. And for more information on LinkedIn, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Joe?
So I publish a weekly newsletter with all my best insights at joemackay.info. That's joemckay.info.
Okay.
And when you subscribe to my email list, you get my Solopreneurs LinkedIn playbook. So that's got a whole bunch more resources on everything we've talked about today and more. So I would love to see people over there.
Fabulous. Because something tells me, too, we just scratched the surface. There's more that we could dig deep into with LinkedIn.
There's a whole lot more out there. Absolutely.
So what's your best tip, Joe, to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle dream?
I think taking control of something in your life like a side hustle is just a great creative outlet. I think it's a fantastic way to find new energy. You might be sitting looking at this, that's another thing that I've got to go and do. But I think what I've found just through growing a business, like starting a side hustle and growing a business, is it actually creates energy in my life. It brings energy and joy and helps me use my brain and my skills in a new way. So even if you feel like you've got a very busy schedule and you're full to the brim, starting a side hustle might just be that creative outlet that you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe, for your insights on LinkedIn. And clearly I need to go back and take a look at my profile page too in re-listening to this and see what I need to tweak and improve. So I really appreciate that from you. And thank you, of course, for being today's Side Hustle Hero.
Thank you so much for having me, Joan. It was great to chat.
Starting conversations isn't just a LinkedIn thing. It's one of the best skills you can build for your side hustle. Because opportunities rarely just show up out of nowhere. They usually come from people, through new connections and past interactions. You got to show up in life and put yourself out there, because your next big opportunity is perhaps just one conversation away. And honestly, this conversation with Joe reminded me that my own LinkedIn profile could definitely use some tweaking. So if you're feeling that same way, you are not alone. And whether you're updating your profile or reaching out, the key is to be genuine, authentic. Be yourself, but be your very best self. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much. In the episode description, you'll find a link to Joe's website, as well as the full show notes, which live at our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in the podcast, it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start and grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.